Go ahead.
This OpenSF was formed August 2021 or sometime during 2021, and because of COVID, there wasn't much progress at that point in time. Around like October, November, December 2021, they started being more active around this, and they started pushing the topic out. And then one of the blog posts they published, this was October 2021, was this with this diagram. So you see this diagram talks about like developer, source, build, package, consumer, and so on. And they have these like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, up 21 different things. They highlighted here projects, if you see that way. And I failed to see enough emphasis on continuous integration and continuous delivery on this blog post and on this diagram and projects and CD Foundation as well. I was like, okay, software supply chain is pretty critical. All these activities like build stuff and all those things are pretty important. But what about continuous integration, continuous delivery? Like the CI/CD projects, they orchestrate all these different CI/CD phases, for example. And that actually triggered the conversation within CDF. And that's around the time I reached out to you, Leora, asking like, okay, should we form a special interest group within the CDF to contribute what OpenSF is doing from CI/CD perspective? Because we have the practitioners, we have the projects, and the lack of focus or lack of emphasis of CD could perhaps be accommodated if we start discussing this topic within the CD Foundation without going into too much details and without duplicating the work the OpenSF is doing. So that was the purpose of this SIG. Look at what is happening within OpenSF, within CNCF, within other communities, and see how we can contribute this effort based on what we are doing within the CD Foundation, within our projects, and what our contributors within the CDF has been discussing, because they deal with these topics within their organizations, because they are practitioners. They build these CI/CD systems, they maintain them, they hook in new tools, they implement some security checks and so on. So that was the purpose of this SIG. As Leora mentioned, we had quite lots of activity first of 2022 until summer. We had lots of presentations. I see Brett joined. I think Brett presented what they are doing at SAS, and I was at Ericsson at that point in time. We discussed what we are thinking when it comes to supply chain and CI/CD relations. But after summer, we took a summer break, and that's what happens with the SIGs or open source things. Like it slows things down because everyone goes to holidays, and then it takes a bit of effort to bring everyone back to the SIG and continue the conversation. And the other thing we failed to do during the first half of 2022 was we didn't actually continue the discussion around the roadmap. And that's kind of contributed to why we are where we are today. Like we didn't have roadmap, so we didn't have clear, goals for the SIG, what we are trying to do. But thankfully, David, you were one of the people who actually came with a clear idea, supply chain security model. That was really cool idea. And then that group started doing its work separately, so we kind of lost connection to those discussions within the SIG. So that's where we are. That's the history, quick history, and some summary of why we are here today, like very low traffic and progress.
That's certainly helpful for me in sort of backfilling. I did want to bring kind of an update back here with regard to the supply chain maturity metrics conversations. But that's a specific topic as opposed to this broad topic of SIG direction, which I think deserves its own attention. On the other hand, if the attention of the SIG is, well, we should be talking about this supply chain maturity, and that should be where our roadmap is being set, then perhaps the right thing is to pivot over to that conversation now.
I think that topic deserves to be in the roadmap for the SIG, one of the topics, because you are already working with that. And I've been part of some of the meetings, SIG best practice meetings. I think the document you created, David, that document used during the conversations in the best practice SIG as well. So if it makes sense, like bringing that topic back to SIG software supply chain and making that part of the roadmap, that would be great thing to do. So yeah, I think the topic is like both the supply chain maturity model plus SIG roadmap would make sense to me. And the other discussions we had, like, again, Brett, you mentioned the event usage within SAS, and there have been some conversations around like how we can contribute to SIG events, CD events from software supply chain aspects. So those could directly be included in the roadmap if we want to discuss that. So we have 2 topics at least to include in our roadmap.
So let me let me put on the table, because this is part of what I wanted on the agenda today anyway. So let me just bring an update back here with regard to this the maturity metrics, what's been going on in that work stream, and perhaps that will provide some input into this conversation around a roadmap. So basically, we've had I don't know, somewhere between 3 and half a dozen meetings over there. The net result is the document that I've linked here in our agenda. If you don't have HackMD open, I'll just quickly share the link here for convenience. So if you don't have today's agenda open, there it is. And there is a link in there to the document that I will call the work product of that work stream. That is a little bit of an exaggeration. And the reason I say that is, and I don't mean this as a pat on my own back, I apologize that you don't have access. Okay, I'm gonna deal with that asynchronously, sorry. 90% of the work in there, probably more, is actually just me. I was hoping this was going to be a community effort. There were some comments and suggestions here and there from a couple of people at a couple of companies, but by and large, it was received very passively in the community. A lot of people expressed interest. Very few people got actively involved, even in terms of making suggestions. There are, I don't know, fewer than a half a dozen people who actually even made suggestions into that final doc. Because of that, that's sort of piece number 1. So I wanted to bring that doc back here because I wanted to kind of report on it, and that's where it is. I think the right direction for that doc is to include those metrics in the best practices piece of the CDF website that I would call still under development. It has a whole section there on sort of how to assess the maturity of your CI/CD and how to sort of up level and what your next steps might be and so on. And this doc captures an awful lot of information that I think could help guide that section. Having said that, I don't want to continue to drive solo here for 2 reasons. One of them being that I'm sure everyone has seen that Google has announced layoffs. We are more resource constrained right now at Google than we have been in recent past. And so we're refocusing a bit and trying to narrow focus to a smaller set of priorities. I want to reclaim the time I have been putting into that doc and that effort. So I am supportive of the idea of that sort of effort continuing forward, but not necessarily under my personal leadership and effort into getting anything done with it. I also think that work stream has, quite frankly, run its course, and we should probably just shut it down, especially if no one is going to pick up that doc from where it is and run forward with it and drive it onward. So that's sort of input, I think, into this roadmap conversation around what this SIG is about.
So I'm still waiting on access to the doc, but I hear you, David. And I would like to apologize for not participating more. My company, much like your company, is resource constrained, and I have a huge amount of new. We took on security posture for the pipeline and the product, and so I've got this huge security thing running around now that's beating me in the head, and I've got compliance coming down because we're trying to get FedRAMP certified. So I'm getting, I ran out of time. So we talked about the holiday, and then for most people it was a holiday. For me, it was like, oh God, I've got all this stuff I have to do. But I'm trying to carve out time to come help. with this SIG again. And now, we're in February now. I have a little bit better idea what I'm going to be doing the next, 3 to 4 months. So I'm trying to carve out time to come help and hang out with the team and, you guys. So one question I had is this doc better served in a Git repo where we can do pull requests against it? Possibly. Because I feel bad that I wasn't able to contribute to this, but I feel like this document would help us with compliance, right? Where I could go to my compliance team and tell them, hey, look, this is our CI/CD maturity level, right? I've been getting requests for, is the new pipeline going to be able to do this? Is the next generation of the pipeline able to do this? And frankly, if I had some doc that was like, hey, look, this is what the community thinks and this is where we're headed. So I'd appreciate that. I don't know if any of that was helpful, but yeah.
Yeah, that's really helpful. And to be clear, I'm sure everybody's got their resource constraints for why they, weren't more active in creating this, and that's all fine. I'm happy to sort of as a handoff step convert this into a GitHub markdown file repo for for collaboration there, and take it out of doc form. It does it. I mean, I'll be frank. Does it? So maybe that enables more collaboration. Maybe it doesn't. I don't know the answer to that. But leaving that question aside, if it doesn't, does it matter to you if it's in doc form or GitHub repo? Does it have more value in one or the other? Does that actually matter, or is this just an effort that you think might enhance collaboration?
So if we put it in the GitHub repo, so we put it in the docs in the SIG software supply chain folder, I don't have to go we don't have to go ask for access to it, right? And not that I don't think we shouldn't. I'm just saying that, like, I don't think there's anything in here that is like, I'm looking through it right now. I don't think there's anything in here that is like Google specific that you have to worry about. So it seems, and it's pretty good so far. I mean, I'm just flying through it, and these are all things that are on my roadmap. We've either done, are doing, or increasing efforts on, right? So I think it'd be well served to be in the GitHub repo, in the docs, and then I would share it with people in my company easier. And we have a open source initiative that we are supposed to, well, I mean, to be transparent, we're a 40-year-old proprietary company that sells analytics software, and we haven't exactly been the best open source contributors. And so guys like me that have come into the company from the open source community want to help improve that, and we have an initiative to do that. So I've got guys that'd be interested in this, including my compliance team, which might be good or bad. That's why we have pull requests, right?
I mean, frankly, that sounds like a very good story behind moving it into GitHub, and I'm happy to take that on as a next step. I'm going to consider that my sort of handoff step, if you will, to hand this off to community ownership by the SIG as opposed to Ben Dory shepherding everything.
Yeah, no, I think that's what we should do. And as well as I do that getting the community involved is hard.
Yep. Yes,
if it's not friggin' hot and awesome, nobody wants to contribute, right? We call it, at my company, we call it digging ditches, right? And if I look for guys who don't mind digging ditches, right? Because it's not all sexy, right? It's not all hot Rust code that's, doing some WASM stuff, right? A lot of it is hard work and documentation. So yeah, no, let's get it into the GitHub, and then I encourage all of us to share it with our teammates, friends in the open source community. And then, we should even, so I've got 2 talks coming up at the Raleigh DevOps Days in April. And so that's another thing we could do to socialize some of these SIGs is bring them up during our talks if you're doing the external talks. So I will put that on my list of, hey, I'm part of the CDF, and we've got a SIG over here, and you should go check out this doc. So those are the 2 things I will try and do to help this out.
Okay, so that gives us some AIs for this doc in particular, and I think unless someone wants to take the counterpoint, I think what I'm hearing is we think this doc has value for community ownership by the SIG. That's great. That gives us sort of one roadmap area. I don't know if there's a roadmap item without, sort of further action items around that. To step back from sort of my specific agenda to Fatih's broader question. What else should be on the roadmap for this SIG?
So one of the things that was going on right before we kind of broke for holidays was the example pipeline thing. I forgot what it was called, but Fresca or whatever it was, where they were going through and we had some opposition because we didn't want to have any bias towards certain products, like, certain technologies, but we wanted to have an example. And I thought we were working on this is best practice for supply chain thing. Is that something we wanted to bring back up, focus on again for a little bit more? I don't know. Some of my interests tend to overlap the events SIG. So, but I mean, we are the supply chain SIG.
I think that Fresca thing, it definitely makes sense to look at it because it uses some of our projects, but it doesn't have focus around interoperability. So we can take that and we can perhaps broaden our thinking when it comes to event types for software supply chain and come up with some kind of, idea, okay, how this Fresca thing could be made more interoperable, those things within the Fresca, and pass that back to events SIG, saying these are the things we identified based on our conversations within our SIG. What do you think about these folks? Because I think it is in their roadmap or it is in their heads, SIG events. They think, but they don't have enough time and people to look at these aspects. So
Right.
we can take the Fresca as the practical thing and start poking it and identify things from there, which kind of makes bridges these different topics within the potential SIG roadmap, this SIG's roadmaps, because events is one of the topics, maturity model is another topic, and how we can look at this from practical perspective, which we can go back and contribute to Fresca over time. So yeah, to me, it makes sense.
Okay. Yeah, we could do that. We could take the Fresca and apply this SIG's focus to it, right? So that makes sense. A couple of things, how do I get it? So security is all I've been talking about for 2 years with my supply chain, to the point where I'm sick of it. I would love to get back to talking about the fact it's event driven and it's awesome, right? But all you get to talk about is security. So to swing that around, maybe we should have some best practice, some security piece to this SIG as well, because I mean, securing the supply chain is everybody, even people who don't know what the heck they're doing are talking about it. So that might be something else that we'd be interested in. And I'm fine if everybody says, shut up, Smitty, I'm tired of listening to you. But security definitely feels like something we should be able to talk about in some concept.
Maybe I'm misremembering here. I thought there is a security SIG already. Am I mistaken?
Oh, is there? Oh man.
Oh, that is archived. That was one of the original SIGs, and all those people, they are in OpenSSF now. So we should probably archive the Slack channel and the repo as well.
Okay, so it really, I think what I'm hearing there is, and I agree, Brett, that security is a hot topic. I mean, everybody's talking about it. And so Fatih, what I'm hearing there, I think, is that the existence of that SIG should basically be shut down, and the agenda and roadmap around that should be folded into here.
Yeah, that was one of the things in this SIG's README as well. We proposed to use whatever produced by that SIG or incorporate their work into this SIG as well, because that focus on security, and the purpose of naming this SIG is to look at more stuff than just security, you know.
Right. The
Yeah, I
stuff we
agree that we
like
have
to
a
do.
broader mandate. I agree.
The stuff we like to do, not the security.
So Fatih, are you the right person to take the AI to, shut down that SIG and bring whatever work products over to here? Okay, I'm going to give you that
Yeah.
AI in our meeting notes.
Yeah. Yes.
So back to my original speech, as I said, my knowledge in security is I wouldn't say non-existing, but I would say that this is not my expertise in, but I could bring to the table all kinds of questions that the team that I'm working with are challenged with. They're probably small problems. They're not that, like not looking at from the 20,000 miles overview of supply chain and CI/CD, but like day-to-day problems that are related to CI/CD and supply chain and security, of course. And I actually have like one example from last week that we are debating and we don't have an agreement on what should we do. And I would definitely like to hear folks here that are, more knowledgeable than I and more experienced from the security point of view, and to hear your thoughts. And I would like this SIG also to be a place where we can bring those kind of questions and to hear thoughts of others. Would that work for the rest of the guys here?
I'm more than happy to share my knowledge of pain and misery working in this space.
I think it's a great idea. I mean, every problem you put on the table is probably, either shared or solved by someone else in the room. So,
or not solved,
or not solved.
I did say "or," by the way.
Or
yeah. So collaborating on our misery around common problems, and frankly, hearing from someone who has solved some piece of them would probably really help us out. Help us all out.
Right.
Definitely. Let me know. Give me the cue when I can spill out my little problem.
I'm willing to answer whenever, but I want to make sure that the two things that I worry about is that we talk about roadmap and focus. Is I think we should keep our roadmap and focus concise and not look too far ahead. Because like I do that at work all the time. We have this huge roadmap and I'm like, okay, what are we not getting done this year? Shunk. And so if we can focus a little bit on some of the important stuff that we've already brought up, I think we could get it done, right? And in getting it done is the important part, right? And I'm sorry if you hear my dogs barking in the background. But yeah, and then so I'm more than happy to do question and answers. And I'm also happy that like if we want to have people come to this SIG and say, hey, I don't want to do this in the SIG, but can we set up a meeting, outside of the SIG? And I'm more than happy to come and talk about the stupid things I've done over the years and how I've fixed them and how I have not fixed them, if you're interested.
So I think to sort of step back to this roadmap question again, I think what I'm gathering so far from this conversation is there's sort of a standard, a standing agenda for this SIG, which effectively has two broad topics. The first topic is around security, and the second topic is around maturity. They're obviously related, but in both cases, we want a standing agenda for both presentation of best practices as well as sort of problem statements and discussions around specific aspects in either of them. I saw Brent nodding. Lior, I didn't see you nodding too. George, you've been pretty quiet. And any input either on that or the rest of the conversation, frankly?
Yeah, I know. Sorry, I've been primarily listening and also came in to primarily just listen. Plus, I got kind of distracted by colleagues. So
okay. That's okay.
You still know that, like, I don't. The thing is, I've been thinking. Well, we had a call the other day, and I don't want to derail this discussion about defining the scope of this SIG by bringing in different perspectives or different things that can also be done. Just for the other two on the call, I was wondering if we should have in the to-do group of the Linux Foundation a more OSPO-focused group of people that are taking material out of various communities regarding security, just like CDF and others, and then compile that with an OSPO, Open Source Program Office focus. And this is what I discussed with David the other day. But this is also in the making and also needs to be scoped. So I'm really interested in what you guys are coming up with, but I really don't want to put additional, let's say, issues in finding the scope of the SIG in your path. So, sorry.
I'm up for whatever. You know, we do have a Slack channel. We can discuss, you know, what we want to do outside of this SIG and other SIGs. I'm all for more contributions to the Linux Foundation and stuff like that. So anything, you know, again, I'm resource constrained, much like David. I have an email standing now about how I'm going to prevent developers from deploying stuff without permission. It's just wonderful because, you know, we've never really done that before because we kind of trust our developers and now we can't. So yeah, if you understand that email that I'm talking about, that is waiting for me when I get off this call, you'll understand my time constraints. But yeah, no, I'm all for it. Whatever I can. I mean, it'd be interesting.
George, should we perhaps, you know, I highlighted 2 standing agenda items. Maybe there's a third one, which is around OSPO and, you know, the interactions. I mean, we're all working at companies that have I'll call it a love-hate relationship with open source, right? We're all contributing,
Yeah.
we're all using it. We all
Yep.
spend some time contributing to
Right.
it. And I'm going to bet that in all of our companies, we get questioned around what's the value of you contributing all our work to open source.
Yep.
Or variations on that theme.
Yeah, I'm all for that being the third topic of this. Because the supply chain, David, you probably run into this a lot. We constantly have this not invented here syndrome problem. And there's is there an open source tool that does this, right? And then I go and find the open source tool, and then I have to beat it with a hammer until it's a tiny silver ball so that it works for my stuff. And it no longer resembles the open source product that it was. Or do I not waste time beating on that open source product, and do I just go write it myself and don't open source it? And so this is a problem we've had for a long time. And these are things that if we could get some guidelines, some help, something you can take to your management chain and go, look, this is why open sourcing this cool thing we're doing is important, right? It's not part of our product we sell to our customers. It is not, you know, the community would like to see this, right? Those type of things are things that I deal with every day. I mean, I've got, I presented in the events thing about my event-driven software that I wrote to drive our CI/CD so fast that people freak out and ask me to stop it. And then the first question out of everybody's mouth was, when are you going to open source this? And so it took me a year to get it on the roadmap, and we're going to try and open source it this year, right? But if we could have just started open source, and if I'd had some way to go, here, look, this is what the community says the value is of us starting with this as open source, I would gladly contribute to anything we can do like that. Is that kind of what we're talking about, or am I like misguided?
No, that's the kind of thing I'm thinking that I was thinking about in response to what George brought to the table.
Okay, cool.
We have similar conversations. Obviously, our OSPO office is under the same resource constraint conversations as the rest of us. And
yeah.
Yeah, okay, sounds good and cool. But yes, exactly, you summarized it quite well. Interesting to hear that it's not just our company suffering from the not invented here syndrome.
Yeah, I got 40 years of not invented here.
I invented all of it, so it's not a problem.
Look, to be clear, we have our own branch of CVS that we maintain. Okay.
Ooh,
not
That's
invented
nice.
here.
That's nice.
That's
No,
ambitious.
it's not.
Yeah.
It is vicious. I am trying to kill it dead. but our biggest code base that makes us the most money is in it. And it's like, what do you do with the $3 billion code base? I can't just pull it out of the CVS. So yeah, try to secure that.
If you read the Google software engineering book, it talks about our internal monorepo, and it was once
Yeah.
based on Perforce, and we eventually took Perforce and forked it and went our own way.
Garrett.
Yeah, we're no, this is our our internal system. That's not actually Garrett.
Okay, because I'm stuck with Garrett inside, and then we're trying to move to GitHub now. So I've got CVS, GitLab, and Garrett. And the only thing I'm missing is Subversion and Mercurial, but I used last company I was at.
What
What
about our
about ClearCase? Where is ClearCase?
Oh,
There you go, ClearCase. I want RCS in there.
Oh yeah, right.
RCS, one of the best.
Yeah, no, I think we should start a comedy SIG based on the stuff that we see at our companies. I blame, running joke too, David, at our place is that we've got, so we have Gradle and we have Mage that we use for Go, and we have Makefiles running around, and we've got some other, CI tools. But every time somebody says, what are we going to replace them with? Bazel is what we say. And so, yeah, and I believe that's Google's fault. And we all look at it about 5 minutes ago. No, just no.
Bazel is really hard to adopt. If you can
Yes.
get there, it is astoundingly good. I mean,
Right.
I could tell you stories about the value of that of Bazel.
So this goes
but
back
really
to
hard to adopt.
This goes back to the tools thing, where what makes up your supply chain, right? And what's in your supply chain, and how did these tools help you, or how did these tools hurt you? Kind of conversations are also stuff to be interesting.
That sounds like it fits under kind of the standard agenda items under either maturity or security.
Maybe maturity.
Yeah.
Maybe maturity, because if you take the fact that I just told you guys I've got 4 SCMs, we're trying to get rid of all of them and go to GitHub Enterprise so that Microsoft can have all our money. That's the type of stuff that we would talk about in maturity, right?
Definitely.
Cool.
Definitely. Lior, you had a problem you wanted to bring on the table. Why don't you throw it out there? The rest of us have been throwing our sarcasm on the table. So
No, it's okay. I'm having fun here, so I'm good at listening. But yeah, I will drop my. I'll explain my use case. Okay, so we are using a tool, a third-party tool. Actually, it's Artifactory. I don't know if you're aware of that.
Yeah, no, we've got 5 instances, and we keep finding new instances. It's like, oh wait, that team's got their own instance. Why do you have your own instance? We have an instance over here. Sorry.
Okay, I don't know if you know, it's an Israeli company. I'm just like proud that I'm Israeli, yeah, but it's unrelated. It's just off topic. Okay, one of our pipelines is supposed to have an image that the Artifactory is installed there, or actually the CLI of Artifactory needs to be installed there. And in order to install the CLI, there is a GPG key. That is, the GPG key is to identify that the packages that we are downloading from JFrog is actually the packages that we are expecting to download from and install in our image. Okay. The team decided to track the GPG key in Git repo. What happened to Brett? Brett, are you okay?
Don't check GPG keys into Git repos.
So
they're in the history forever.
I wonder, like, I had multiple discussions about whether this is the best practice to do that or not. What are the implications? I've talked with security guys. I've talked with folks that are in the industry in my area of colleagues that are not from Red Hat, and they all have different opinions of how to use that. Again, I'm not an expert in GPG nor in security, but I have, like, my gut feeling says that this is the wrong things to do. But I don't have the tools to convince our guys. because again, I'm not a security person. So I would love to hear your thought and maybe change my gut feeling. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm all open for a good discussion about that.
I'll let David go first.
All right, so I'll start. Never ever check any secure key into GitHub. Ever. Big no.
It's a public key, by the way.
Oh, it's a public key. Okay, I thought you were talking about the actual credential.
Okay. No,
Okay,
don't do it.
I'll back off from my statement. So what you're getting into here, at least this is what I'm hearing. You're getting into what we term the key distribution problem, which is you need to verify some product and you need a key to do the verification. And now the question is, how do you know that you can trust the key? How does the key get distributed in a trusted way? The most trusted way would be, Leora, for you and I to meet in person, to check each other's passports, for me to hand you my public key, for you to take my public key and encrypt it with your private key, and now you've got a secure copy of my public key, right? And now, repeat ad infinitum, and you've got all your public keys certified. That's obviously not realistic. That was part of the original vision of GPG, was these or PGP, I guess, was that people would meet in person and exchange keys like that. So in the real world, this comes down to deciding what your root of trust is. So as an example, if I decide I trust GitHub, then if your public key is in GitHub and I decide that I trust the commit history for that key, then I trust the public key from GitHub and can use it to verify any work product that you give me that public key can verify. But notice that there were some big ifs in there around my root of trust. And my root of trust is not simply a question of, do I trust the person who committed this to the GitHub repo? I don't know if you've seen, I've got a repo in GitHub where I demonstrate how easy it is to make a fake commit history. It's trivial in GitHub to make a fake, completely forged commit history. But I'm also asking the question of, well, do I trust the engineers at GitHub that they're not changing this stuff? What about the hardware that GitHub runs on? So I have to at some point declare, this is my root of trust, and I don't dig down any further. In other words, I have to make some declaration about my leaf nodes where I'm going to stop. For most people, those are not, that doesn't mean walking to the very end leaf nodes, right? It means stopping somewhere along the way. In terms of certificates on the web and the way you use your browser comes with a set of certificates installed. For most people, those are the leaf nodes that they stop at. But you could ask the question of, do you trust them, and are you going to stop there, right? Do you want to do further verification than that? So how do you answer the question of what are my leaf nodes or what is my root of trust becomes a question is, well, what is the security level that you are willing to invest in order to mitigate the risk that you are trying to address? So I'm not sure if I answered your question or if I just kind of clarified the problem space, but I'll pause there and stop my monologue.
So I liked the description. I liked it. It's better than I would have said. So I will add my 2 cents. So we're moving to GitHub. I don't like public keys or any key in the Git repos. I posted the Git leaks. We have that in our linters that run in the pull requests, so that we at least try and find these things to flag them. To David's point, if you are going to trust Microsoft and GitHub and the hardware they run on and the software they write, okay, so let's say we stop there and say, okay, we trust GitHub enough to put our public key in there because this is, a public key. Then I would say that what's the security practice on that repository, right? So if you lock that repository down where only the robot can get to that repository, right, that is doing the work to check the CLI, you could definitely go that route. Now, my question to you is that you could have created a repo that has the CI that does the pulling of the code, pulling the CLI down, right? And in that repo, you could set that secret, you could set that GPG key as a secret in GitHub. And then you are, as long as you trust Microsoft and GitHub, you're even more secure now because no one can go mess with that except org admins, right? Or the repo admin, depending on what level you put the secret at. That would be a case, it's kind of like Kubernetes, right? So the case where you put your secrets in the Kubernetes secrets and you're trusting the Kubernetes is secure, right? For a public key for JFrog, well, I don't know, I'm overly paranoid, but I would think that if you put it in a secret in a GitHub repo, it would probably be fine.
Okay, so let me ask those devil questions, if I may. Okay. What preventing me from every time that I'm rebuilding my package and downloading the latest and greatest JFrog CLI package to pull again the GPG key from JFrog's website, the same way that I'm downloading the package? Why do I need to track this GPG key in my Git repo if I can download that dynamically? Again,
So,
and a second, just a second. And the second question is that eventually, in order for the GPG key to land in my Git repo, a human, okay, needs to go to the same website to download the GPG key and to push that to Git, okay? This is a manual intervention, which in my gut feeling, I'm losing the chain of custody here between the website, the JFrog website, and the Git repo. So the trust here is not only trusting GitHub or GitLab for our case, and the hardware and all the rest. There is a process here that is happening that I don't have any control of, and I don't have logs of what happened. Like who did what? Nothing is established there, right? But if I'm doing when I'm building my container image, and actually, eventually I'm pushing it to a registry and stuff like that, I have a log that shows what I've done, and I can even define like a extremely high level of verbosity to the downloading of the GPG key and the package if I want to, right? Like from which IP address I've downloaded that, and it's happening by an automation, right? So everything that is done between, this file in transition is something that is logged in a log file, and I can see and I can validate what happened. And there is no human in the middle, no man in the middle that can, enter something that is malicious.
So this brings up provenance. And if you, one of the things that I read about provenance that I stuck with me is that provenance should be machine generated and not be able to be falsified. And so we are struggling with this ourselves at our company. And basically we were at the board yesterday planning, and we had a sticky note and it said third-party automation, onboarding automation, right? And so you turn the process of onboarding third-party utilities in, and you automate it so that you generate provenance as you're onboarding them, right? And then you put the stuff in a secure, well, I will say registry, but you understand, like a secure place. And then so once the provenance is generated and you put the third-party piece in a secure place, your CI only pulls it from that place. It doesn't pull it from JFrog every time where there's a chance of a man-in-the-middle attack, right? Or of something being falsified. I'm not saying that's easy. I'm just saying that that's what we are planning on doing in the coming year. No more curl pipe bash stuff off the internet. I don't know if David's got anything he wants to put in on that, or George.
So I'll just a couple of thoughts in response. Big thumbs up to automation and to machine generated provenance and non-falsifiable. And I will add non-repudiatable provenance, right? If the creator can repudiate the provenance, you've got another set of problems.
A
I will
second,
add-
David,
What's that?
a second. Can you translate the word?
Oh, sure. I'm sorry.
I don't know the word.
To repudiate means to declare invalid. So
Okay.
if I give you my work product and I give you a provenance that goes with it, you need to be able to verify that that provenance is real. What if I have a way of revoking your ability to verify the provenance? So now I can deny that I ever gave you that provenance.
Okay.
So such that if I am evil and malicious, I give you a malicious work product, I give you a provenance for it, I then revoke your ability to verify the provenance, and now I can deny that I had anything to do with the malicious product that you go and deploy. So you go deploy my work product in production, bad things happen, you go follow your audit trail to figure out who made this, you can't figure it out. I've been able to repudiate.
Okay.
Okay, so I can deny any association with the work product. This gets into details of key signing and all kinds of esoteric fun, but non-falsifiable and non-repudiatable. Like there's a better word than that, and I can't come up with it. Can't be repudiated is what I'm trying to say, but there is a better word and I can't think of it. At any rate, so that's sort of piece number one. Piece number two. The reason not to keep your public key in JFrog alongside the artifact is now if I have admin in JFrog, I also have admin over the public key. So as a single administrator, I can falsify the artifact and falsify the key in one step in JFrog. If you have the key in GitHub or some other location and the artifact in JFrog, and no one person has administrative authority over both, I now can't do that alone. I need a second party to collaborate with me. So that adds some security. Now, as you pointed out, Lior, and you're 100% correct, doesn't that also increase my risk? Now I have to trust two locations. And the answer is, again, you always have to balance risks. Yes, it increases your attack surface. On the other hand, your attacker has to hit two places, right? And be able to make changes in both of them. The other thing I'll call out is there are other techniques here. If you look at Google's, sorry, this isn't meant to be an advertisement. It's just meant to be a description of an alternative approach. If you look at Google's KMS in our cloud offering, our key management system, no human can even download the private key. The private key is maintained in the cloud, and you basically can use commands to sign artifacts. And so and it also has built-in key rotation, so that if the key rotates every 30 days, and it knows that an artifact signed during this time frame should have been signed with this version of the key, and an artifact signed during the next time frame. So you think about your artifacts that you deploy to production. Some artifacts sit in production for 6 months, and some are replaced every week, and you have to be able to verify both. So what KMS lets you do is it lets you point at a key in a key ring and the key has different versions. You don't have to point at you can point at the version of the key if you want, but you can point at the key itself and not at the version, and it uses the right version for the particular artifact, which is actually pretty cool. What this enables, among other things, is if version 3 of the key gets compromised somehow, I can revoke version 3, and everything else that has been signed with that key with a different version is still valid. It only revokes the key against version 3, which is actually pretty cool. So I don't know, I can't imagine Google is the only product out there that offers that. It is the only one I know about, but the feature is out in public, so I'm sure other people, if they don't have it already, are looking to develop similar things. But key rotation also needs to be part of the security story there.
Yeah, interesting. Thank you. Thank you for your feedback. I really, it's in, how do you say it in English? I need to think of the word. I will find it eventually. I can't find the right word right now to express my my thought. Sorry.
I just thought of the Hebrew word for repudiate. It would be zomem.
Ah, zomem. Interesting. Okay. Okay.
Nice.
That
Thank you.
help?
Yes, a lot.
So, and to be clear that all of us have this problem. So, you're not alone. And a lot of the solutions that I've seen recently are nascent. And how do you put it? This space, I described it as this. So I was working with the In Toto project on trying to use their tools to do provenance, and they've got a spec and they've got some tooling to do this provenance. And I kept running in. I would get like pretty far along on something, and I'd run into to do. And then I would go and be like, okay, it's not done yet. And I'd go on another path and I'd run into to do. And so we haven't all solved this security dilemma yet. And then like if Google would have open sourced that KMS stuff, we'd be a lot closer because that stuff's awesome. But not all of us are in GKS. Some of us are slaves to Microsoft and Azure. David, there's your takeaway is go tell them to open source that KMS stuff.
Brett, nobody is perfect.
There's a reason certain things don't get open sourced.
Yeah, I know. It's too brilliant. Look, I have 40-year-old analytics company. Our algorithms are not getting open sourced, guaranteed. Okay. If you guys don't know, I work for SAS Institute, and we're based out of Cary, North Carolina. Not that it matters, just that I did a bunch of open source. I worked in startups, and then I worked for IBM, and I'd work for a startup, and I'd go back to IBM, and I'd work for a startup, and then I'd work for another startup, and then the last startup I worked for got bought by SAS, and now I play soccer every day at lunch and refuse to quit and go back to startups. But anyway, we all have this problem, and we all have this discussion, and our discussion in my group always ends with key management's hard. Does that sound about right, David?
Yeah, I mean, key management is a big and not well solved problem in most spaces today. I called out Spiffy and Spire. I don't know if others are familiar in the open source space. They're trying to deal with this. And they've got pretty good, if not quite yet complete solutions, I will call it. I think they'll get to a complete solution.
Yeah.
And yes, it definitely comes up for us when we talk about In Toto and Salsa and Provenance.
Right. Yeah. I do have on my roadmap this year to help contribute to In Toto, among the 900 other things on my roadmap for this year. So, any other? We're almost at time. Any other quick things we wanted to shout out about or anything? I hope to make the next meeting and continue to make the meetings for the rest of the year. So
I'm going to take the AI here to sort of generate our standing agenda and to post that out into the Slack channel so people kind of know what to expect from this SIG meeting going forward. And hopefully we will generate some interest and have some more. This was an interesting conversation. I'd love to have more interesting ones like this one.
Yeah, this was fun. This was definitely fun.
And frankly, it would be great to have this conversation with, Spiffy Spire contributers here. Love to hear what they have to say.
I'd like to hear that one too, because that's something that I am worried about on a regular basis.
Yeah.
And I'd also
no
like
idea
to
what it is. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, well, go Google them. It's really cool stuff. But I also was glad we made it through the whole meeting without talking about blockchain. Thank you.
Feel free to share the information over the Slack channel, because I think that this conversation, this side chat, will disappear eventually, and I will not find the information.
I'll send it to you on Slack.
Cool.
Perfect. Thank you.
Have a great day, everybody.
Yep. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Bye.
Talk to you guys later.
Thank you.